The episode Orb precedes the Elements miniseries, which has already been released on iTunes. It's impossible to analyze the dreams in Orb without touching on events from Elements, thus this review will contain major spoilers. I highly recommend you watch this review only after you've already seen the Elements miniseries. Orb takes place on the freight ship while Finn, Jake, and BMO cross the ocean for their return trip back to the land of Oo. They've got a ludicrous supply of bananas to sustain them, which I guess means the main island has a fruitful banana plantation on it. This also feels like a deliberate callback to Martin's story in the episode The Visitor.
You were born on a boat, I guess, like a banana boat?
This episode is all about the weirdness of dreams. A mysterious orb, which Finn deduces is some kind of nightmare princess, appears and influences the dreams and eventually nightmares of our heroes.
I think she entered our nightmares and mashed them up in order to communicate with us.
The resolution was silly. The orb just wanted bananas, but she's not a thief, so she wanted to ask first. Unfortunately, she can only ask in the form of dream manipulation. The appeal and fun to this episode was not the resolution, but the dreams themselves, which were strange, quirky, and had interesting ways of transitioning from one event into another. The dreams were prophetic, foreshadowing events to come, and also provided rich character studies. The most fascinating aspect of the dreams for me is that they were rooted in the insecurities and fears of the characters having them. This feels like an episode I should revisit one day because it packs so much highly interpretive content, but I'll do my best with the thoughts I currently have. Let's start with BMO. His dream begins with him descending in a reflective elevator, which definitely paints a theme of self-reflection. The audience for BMO's play is just miscellaneous food items, perhaps indicating that BMO does things for his own sake. Art is one of the themes running through these dreams.
I love art.
And in this case, BMO reminded me a bit of James Baxter, who learned to perform for himself rather than for others. I interpret this portion of the dream as representative that BMO lives life with few inhibitions. His own happiness is often his primary pursuit. BMO's play is even about the self-absorbed notion that his friends are miserable when he's away. Maybe BMO subconsciously realizes that sometimes he gets too self-absorbed, and this manifests in the form of Amo, who is the dark reflection of BMO.
I'm bad, but you still like me.
BMO doesn't like this realization and tries to reject it.
The play started out good, but it didn't have any relatable characters.
BMO's the director, but so is his other self, football, and within BMO also resides Amo. BMO has the capacity for change and growth, and thus also the capacity to become many different things. My interpretation is that BMO's nightmare is about fear of the self, the doubt about who you are as a person, and the fear of who you may change into over time.
So what if I turn out bad too?
Now, let's move on to Finn. Dreams of flying represent a sense of euphoria. Flying happily means your life might be going well, that a weight has been lifted off your chest, that kind of thing. During Islands, Finn learned about the legacy of humans, allowed them to have the freedom to explore the world, and met and bonded with his mother. While leaving his mother was bittersweet, the voyage allowed Finn to overcome feelings he had been burdened by for a very long time.
If I don't see this through, part of me will always be stuck to that boom boom leaf where Mom found me.
It makes a lot of sense for Finn's dream to begin with him flying. The next portion of Finn's dream is prophetic. Princess Bubblegum is standing on grassy mounds covered with gum in a way that looks visually similar to veins. It's foreshadowing to PB's elemental powers infecting the landscape back in Oo. Finn can no longer fly because he has a new burden weighing him down, even if he's not fully aware of it yet. Oo is in trouble again. Then grass ties around him and keeps him grounded even further, which is directly relevant to a conversation Finn will have with Jake in the episode Cloudy.
Like deep down inside, was I afraid Fern would be better than me?
The grass grabbing Finn and later absorbing him is a representation of the insecurities Finn has about Fern. Losing teeth in dreams is often representative of change and transition, so it's pretty easy to guess what it means for Princess Bubblegum. She has transitioned into a new being due to being supercharged with elemental magic back in Oo. There's even more prophetic visions in Finn's dream, including seeing his treehouse candified and the landscape transmogrified by various elements. There being a Lichmo is perhaps another premonition, maybe even a warning. The Lichmo is still missing a piece of its horn, but by the end of Elements, Sweet Pea has it back. If this was a prophetic warning, perhaps it was unheeded in Elements. Either way, whatever this means, it's very creepy and hints that the Lich plotline has not yet been resolved. Last but not least, Jake. I consider his dreams the most confusing and difficult to decipher. They also have prophetic components, but contain many aspects: insecurities about aging, fear of mortality, and complicated feelings about family. This is right off the heels of Islands 2, where Jake saw his parents in distress when under the influence of some jellyfish. Jake's dream starts with a tension of family dynamics being downplayed via laugh tracks. Part of the dream is certainly about how Jake and his brother Jermaine don't see eye to eye on many things, exemplified by their differences in art preference. Perhaps it's also Jake wishing he had a better bond with his brother, as the two remain together for a good portion of his dreams. Jake's father paints a symbol of the elementals that Patience had utilized before, and tells his sons to dig. If you've seen Elements, this is foreshadowing to the cliffhanger at the end. Negating the elemental magic turns Jake into a form resembling the very thing that impregnated Jake's father. A shadow looms over the hole being dug, like a dark cloud, making the whole situation feel foreboding and ominous. There's a sense that the mysteries to Jake's origin are of a dark nature. The footsteps on the ceiling? I don't know what that's about. Leave a comment if you've got an idea. Jake and Jermaine burying Joshua.
Looks like you buried me. Why'd you do it?
This feels rather literal. Perhaps Jake feels guilty for his father's death for some reason? Margaret stirring a bowl of worms and then holding Jake among fragrant roses.
I'm sure this is all really symbolic, but it's dang comfy.
Then turning into a vampire, the moon from Stakes, and aging Jake. This one is tricky. I've had a hard time trying to decipher the individual pieces, so I think it's easier to analyze this portion of the dream collectively. This is the point where Jermaine runs away into one of his strictly representational paintings.
I'm into real things.
Perhaps this is a clue that the dream has become even more abstract and is fusing many elements together. Obviously, there's Jake's fear of death and aging present. The moon may simply be there because Jake is afraid of vampires, and he was afraid of the moon the most, but I think the fact that his mother turns into her after cradling Jake among fragrant but thorny flowers is important. We know Jake's mother was highly overprotective of her pups, and that Joshua and Margaret chose to keep the truth from Jake.
Yes, we've got one boy that I gave birth to, and one boy you gave birth to. Let's never tell him how it happened.
Agreed.
I think this whole sequence is about Jake's parents keeping the truth about Jake's origins from him, thinking that what he doesn't know can't hurt him. But as we saw at the end of Elements, where Jake came from is now an issue.
You and I can fix whatever this is together. Whenever.
By coddling Jake and keeping the knowledge of his origins from him, Jake's parents have unintentionally endangered him. This is my interpretation for the general gist of what's being depicted, though many details are still lost on me, such as what the bowl of worms represents. It's made all the more confusing because this dream sequence is muddled by Jake's other fears, such as his fear of old age, which is explored further in the next dream sequence.
I'm old.
Your brother's gonna have to step up his game to keep up with you.
The Simo is voicing Jake's fear that eventually Jake's aging body won't be able to keep up with Finn and his adventures.
We have to do something about these crow's feet, or everyone's gonna know you're too old to play Jake.
Jake is afraid people won't see him for who he is as he ages. He will be living as a shadow of his former self. The exploration of character psyches seems to end after everyone realizes they are sharing the same dream. From then on, it becomes miscellaneous, weird, and scary imagery as Nightmare Princess tries to communicate her desire for bananas. BMO's negotiation skills result in Finn acquiring a vial of nightmare juice, which I feel has to show up in a future episode. Whether it will be a one-off joke or an important plot point, though, your guess is as good as mine. Orb ends with a look at the Land of Oo and how it has been elementally transformed, a really exciting setup for the Elements miniseries. I love this episode. I mean, how could I not? Weird dreams that provide ample details for character studies? That's totally my jam. I love that sort of stuff when there's a sufficient amount of depth packed in, and Orb definitely had plenty of depth to it. Let me know if you have any interesting interpretations of the dream sequences, and I hope you join me in the future when I review the Elements miniseries.